Hey everyone, how you doing today? Thought I would show you an updated version of this Kriel Pariah, which is an OPV for the game. I kind of wanted this to be compatible with both Reforge Eden and Vanilla, and I do plan on building a couple more of these. But I learned a lot of things in the last day or so, talking to several different authors about OPVs. A couple authors more specifically working on vanilla ones, and another one working on Reforge Eden OPVs. And I did learn that there are some differences, but general rule of thumb is a vanilla OPV will also work in Reforge Eden, but not the other way around. As Reforge Eden has additional parts that vanilla does not have and things like that. But I'll try to go over the differences as well. So let me just show you what I do have here with this OPV. So I did finish this one up, and it should be ready, I believe, for game, unless any other issues come up. Yeah, just get the idea. General looking Kriel interior on it, and I learned a lot about what parts you need to put in here, and I'm going to go over that in just a second. I'll just show you the rest of the ship here. And keep in mind, this interior space here is heavily protected by a lot of hull blocks around the entire ship here. So if you notice, the ship's quite a bit wider than what that interior space is. All the blocks used on this ship are either combat steel or Xeno substrate. So basically all the toughest blocks in the game, even the interior. So there's no carbon substrate or steel or anything like that on the ship. It's all high hit point blocks. Now, I wouldn't normally do this with a player creation because it would be way too heavy for the amount of thrust that's on this, or if I balanced it out so it moved pretty good, then I would need a lot of CPU for thrusters. But this is where OPVs are way different. So to start with, general rules of OPVs. First things first, you want to replace the standard core. Like say you just lay down a starter CV block. You would want to swap that core out for an NPC core. And to find those NPC cores, you will see this alien block set in your all your blocks list. And in there, inside of that set, the very first item is the NPC core. So basically, I just blew away the green core and put in the red core, essentially speaking. So that is required for an OPV. So beyond that, let's talk about thrusters first. With thrusters, you do need a thruster in all 6 directions. I was wrong on me thinking you didn't need that. You do need a 6-direction thrust. However, it does not matter on the count or the size of those thrusters. Basically, you could take the smallest thruster available for a CV and put 1 in each direction, and it'll be totally cool. Having more isn't going to make it perform any better. So your thrust speeds and pitch, yaw, and roll are invalid. None of those make any difference in an OPV. That's why I could build this thing out of combat steel and Xeno and have it really heavy for its size with not a lot of thrusters on it to deal with that kind of thing. In fact, if we looked at the specifications on this ship, they're quite weak. You know, it's 4 lift, 2 down, only 8 on strafing. And the roll, pitch, and yaw are pretty weak as well. But it makes no difference. So you don't have to concern yourself with that. Another big thing is you do not have to concern yourself with CPU. It's also invalid. Does not matter. So it does make it a lot easier to build one of these because you can throw out all these stats, CPU, thrust speed, performance, power generation, the whole ball of wax, and just throw it right out the window. It really doesn't matter. At all. A lot of parts are just for lootable items in the ship. So a couple other things that OPV should have, and I don't know if it's actually required for them to function or just to shoot their weapons, but it is recommended to put in an ammo box, at least 1 ammo box, in an OPV. Putting in an ammo controller doesn't accomplish anything at all. In fact, an ammo box, a standard ammo box, will have some random loot in it, some ammo loot of some one origin or another, where a controller, I believe, will just remain empty. So there's really no point whatsoever to pop in a storage or ammo controller in an OPV. A lot of them may have that are in the game, but a lot of those were converted over from player ships to an OPV, and that's probably why they have them, if you do see them in there. Another thing is, okay, power generation. Um, you really you want to put in generators, and several of them actually, but you don't have to care about how big of a generator it is or what kind of power output it is. Essentially, that NPC core just makes it have whatever power it needs regardless. But it was recommended to put in multiple generators in various locations away from the core in OPV. And the reason why is, like, if you're flying around your player ship, you have options when you're targeting enemy ships. To target the generator is one of the options. There's a few other ones. And a lot of people do that, and I've done that myself in games before too, or in past plays of targeting enemy ships' generators. So the whole generator game isn't really about how much power you're making. It's about trying to put them in locations where turrets will be shooting at that can take some hits. And if you have generators in multiple locations, then you can't just like take out one generator and shut the whole thing down. You got to take all the generators out if you're going to do that. So in this case, how I did it in this ship is I have 6 generators in here. I have a 1x3 up over on either side over here. I've got a couple more buried kind of in this block mass here on the front bottom of the ship. So there's a couple little dinky generators there, and I put in a couple more generators over here as well, which are kind of sort of in the hull. You got to shoot through a fair amount of stuff before you can get to them, essentially. But honestly, it doesn't matter. I could have put in one of the smallest generators, and I would have been just fine. But your goal on building a AI-controlled ship is to try to make it survivable the best you can. So there's a little different art form in it, but it's similar to that of making a player ship survivable as well. Having multiple generators, you have a lot of backup. You'd have to take out 6 of these generators before you would be effective at disabling the power on the ship. And since they're located kind of at different places, you'd have to shoot a lot of the ship up to get all the generators, and that's the whole point of it. But it doesn't matter about the power. I could have, you can run big advanced generators or the smallest generators. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, a big advanced generator is better loot, but that's really the only thing you got to concern yourself about with that aspect there. Sorry, I was lost for words for a second. A couple of the things I put in here that don't need to be in here is I put in a couple advanced CPU core blocks, and this is a lootable item. Essentially, you don't have to put in any CPU on an OPV. It doesn't care about the CPU. So if you put in your basic, improved cores, or the 4 advanced, depending on if you're playing vanilla or Reforge Eden, it doesn't matter. It's just a lootable item for the player. As in shielding. Now, shielding is going to fluctuate a little bit between Reforge Eden and vanilla. When I first started this ship, I was planning on the compact shield generator that I had a location for right over here, but I ended up scrapping that idea because it would have made it not compatible with vanilla, because vanilla does not have that part in the game. So what I did is I put in a standard shield kind of on the ceiling here on a new bay. It still has that other port available, but yeah, just a standard shield. And that's pretty much how it works in vanilla. Now, Reforge Eden, once I get over to the Reforge Eden variant, I'll show you some enhanced capabilities you can do with the shield on OPV. So I'm trying to think if I missed any main topics here. Weaponry on one of these. So originally, when I had this laid out, I was using the alien turrets, and I guess none of the other Kriel OPVs or POIs are actually using those alien turrets, and the standard human turrets work just fine. So it was switched over to the human turrets, mainly for consistency between all the Kriel creations. I could have used the alien turrets in most places as well. The human turrets do have one advantage over the alien turrets, and that has to do with their size. A human turret is only 1 block tall, where an alien turret is 2 blocks tall. So these will fit into a little bit tighter spaces than the alien turrets will do. So that's just something to keep in mind. But you can go either way on it with the turrets. This one basically has pretty much an even spread between rocket turrets and laser turrets. Just your standard turrets you would put on a regular vanilla like CV or even Reforge Eden CV, things like that. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything else I wanted to talk about on this. Again, well, just a quick refresh. CPU doesn't matter. Thrust performance does not matter. Power generation does not matter. You don't need to have legitimate ammo storage or anything like that. It doesn't matter. One last thing too that I learned before you're finished up. Say this is going to be done and you want it to be put in the game. One thing you got to remember to do, and typically when we're building these creations, we have the shield turned off because you can't add blocks when the shield's on. But before you save it, that final save, you want to make sure you turn the shield on. Otherwise, the shield just will not be on the ship at all. So it'll be a lot easier target to take down. So just make sure before you do that final save, get that shield turned on before you save it, and then you should be golden. It's just one other thing I didn't realize before. So moving on over here, there's a couple other versions here. This was kind of a altered vanilla version slightly, although I think it's almost 100% the same as the original one. I don't know if there's any changes made. This was done by a different author. Now let's skip that one for now. Let's look at the Reforge Eden one here. So the Reforge Eden OPV can do a couple different things. Obviously, with Reforge Eden, there's a lot more weapons to pick from. So you can run different kinds of weapons on here that are Reforge Eden specific. Again, it's not required, but it's kind of cool that you have more options. In this case, the top turret was replaced with one of these, what is this guy here? I didn't actually place this turret myself here. Okay, so this is an Imperial Heavy Laser Battery. And it wasn't replaced necessarily because it's a better turret or anything. It was replaced because of this type of turret can shoot straight up. And where this is located on, it has a better line of sight, being able to shoot up in this angle, where if you take a look at the turrets that are on this version, they can only tilt up a fair amount, like maybe up to about here, and they could not shoot straight above them. And that's why the turret was swapped out over here with this type of turret that can shoot in a 360-degree pattern all the way around the top. Of course, this turret has a little bit of a limitation as well, where it cannot shoot downward at all, where these other turrets can kind of gimbal a few degrees and be able to shoot more of an angle like that. So that's just something to keep in mind, more with your line of sight with turrets. And it makes more sense to have a turret like that up on the top of this because it would have a better, a lot more things it could shoot at up there versus the other turret that was there. And the same kind of thing was going on over here, where these can kind of swivel and shoot directly this direction if they wanted to. Okay, so on this version here, I'm going to get rid of a couple blocks right now, and I put in these specific. It's kind of doing a little bit of a test right before this video here. So I had regular steel blocks here. Let's just put a couple of those back in place. The cheapest, easiest way there. Okay, or not steel, but combat steel. Okay, so with shielding on a Reforge Eden creation, it is done. The vanilla stuff still works just the same as it would. But you do have some more options. You probably come across like some really powerful OPVs in game, dreadnoughts and things like that. And you'll notice a lot of those have a lot of shield strength and things like that. And how that's accomplished isn't so much with like swapping out the main shield of the ship. Like this one, I believe, was set over to an alien shield generator instead of a standard shield. And this was recommended to do in Reforge Eden. I don't specifically know the reason for that. It might have a little bit more hit points or something like that, but it was recommended to use an alien shield in Reforge Eden OPV. But to increase the shield charge rate and capacity of the shield, it's not done with Reforge Eden shield parts, like your small, medium, and large shield parts. You can put those in a Reforge Eden OPV, but they're just a lootable item. They're not going to do anything. Instead, there's a different way to do it. And in the block menu, if you set your search to show everything, basically, and you start typing in shield here, you will see a set of these look like combat steel blocks, but they're not. They kind of are, but they're not. And there's different types here. You have a shield capacitor T1 and T0 and T2, and then you have a shield recharger T1 and T2. And I got a couple of these down over here. And there's a console command to view your shield strength and recharge rate as well. Like if I'm looking at this creation, you first want to pull up the creation's ID. So I'll hit P on the creation, go to the stat menu here, and the ID is 1301 on this one. So I'm going to open up the console. And you want to type in the word shield and then the creation ID. So 1301. If I do that, and I kind of did this a couple times before the video to test this out, you will see the shield stats of this particular creation here. And right now the shield capacity is at 27,750. It's got a recharge rate of 550 and a recharge bonus of 200. Now, if I wanted to up that, make it bigger, make this a much more shielded creation, I can grab these blocks here for the capacitor or the charger, very much like the small, medium, and large shield parts in Reforge Eden, and just swap out some blocks with these blocks instead. And these are combat strength blocks, basically, or combat steel blocks, so they have 3,500 hit points per block, and they work just like a combat steel block would. But say I get rid of like that block and I add a couple of these guys over here, which were both capacitors, and then on the other side I'll get rid of a couple of these and I'll add in a couple of the chargers here. And then we go back and take hop into the console. And to get the console, if you don't know it, it is the tilde key on the keyboard, or just left of the 1 key on most keyboards. And then I will go in here, I'll just retype this here, and we'll notice that the stats have changed. So now the total capacity of the shield went from 27,750 to 77,000, and the bonus and the recharge rate also went up. So that's basically how you hype up the shield in Reforge Eden beyond the normal shield capacity. So that is a really good option. No, I had no idea about that prior to a very helpful author telling me about this. Completely clueless on it. So that's one of the biggest differences here between Reforge Eden and vanilla with OPVs, is that you have these optional blocks you can add to increase the shield strength in Reforge Eden. But keep in mind, if you're trying to make a OPV that's compatible with both Reforge Eden and vanilla, you would not want to use these first. Maybe for a specific Reforge Eden version after the fact. But like I guess my workflow on building one of these would be to build it for vanilla first, and then see if you want to make some changes for a Reforge Eden version. But the vanilla version will work in Reforge Eden without any changes done to it at all as well, just not the other way around. So keep that in mind, and keep this in mind too about these blocks. Now these blocks can be, I might have showed this already, but you can find them again if you go to your standard block menu or H on the keyboard. Make sure you're set to show all templates, and then type in the word shield, and you will see the blocks available there. At first I had a hard time finding them. I had it selected on CVs. I guess it does show you in CVs. I don't know. I had issues, but I figured it out. It's really easy once you know. Other than that, of course, Reforge Eden does have other types of turrets and things you can add on a creation that vanilla does not have as well. Again, if you're going to build an OPV, try to make it work with both. To start with vanilla, because it's totally compatible with Reforge Eden as well, just not the other way around. So I think that would be the best way to go about things, is build the vanilla version, and then for Reforge Eden, if you want to soup it up, swap out some turrets, add some more shielding, whatever, then do that, and then put out a Reforge Eden version of the OPV as well. And keep in mind, Reforge Eden also has other available shields and other parts as well. You can put any of those parts in there, but very few parts actually do anything in an OPV. Again, no CPU is required. You don't need to balance your power generation or thrust power or any of that stuff at all. It's really quite simplistic to build one of these. It's also great too. I like to build a lot of different types of creations. Sometimes I like to build the technical creations where you're got a target goal on CPU and you're trying to get as much out of your creation as possible within that CPU limit, and things like that. So you're maximizing. You're trying to lower the weight down so you don't have as much thrusters, so you can get more guns on it or more production or whatever. You don't have to think about any of that with the OPV. It's pretty much just make something that looks cool. Try to build it tough, of course. Well, it depends on how hard of a OPV you're trying to build as well. I mean, there's a lot of reason to have like wimpier OPVs as well in the game, because you need something to shoot early on, and not everybody always wants to be attacking like dreadnought stuff. But again, the challenge of building one of these is more or less to I don't know, try to make it live as long as possible, essentially, within a certain target range. Like this one, again, is supposed to be meant as a lower or a low-end OPV for Kriel Space. So, but Kriel Space is, in fact, a more advanced or more difficult area of space than what your starter places would be and stuff like that. So again, they're souped up a little bit. And then lastly, you just kind of want to try to balance the loot depending on what kind, how difficult of OPV it is. Of course, if this was a giant dreadnought with 500,000 shield and all kinds of crazy guns, I would want to put a lot more loot in it than what this has in it. But then again, I wouldn't want to put tons of loot in this thing, because it would be a little too easy to get that loot in the game. So it's a balance factor. So just keep that in mind as well. And other than that, that's really about the ins and out of it. These things don't need a lot of the parts that you would need on a player ship. Plain and simply, there's not really much point of putting like farms or production in it. Again, lootable items, but they don't do anything in the game for these. So hopefully I explained it pretty good, and please let me know if I missed things on this video. I was really trying to go through a bunch of different notes and different people telling me different information about these, and trying to get it all kind of together so it's understandable. And again, next week I do plan on just kind of doing like a build video, building another Kriel OPV, and I'll just kind of probably explain some of the stuff as I'm going through it as well. But again, pretty easy to build. If you're in the creative mood, want to build something that you wouldn't normally build for a player ship because it would be not very optimized at all, OPVs are great source for that. Just one last little note too, like with a player ship, all this stuff over here, all this stuff trying to make these little squid arms or whatever they are, this is all combat steel here, and there's nothing. It's not doing a darn thing. In a player ship, I would hate to waste all that weight and materials for some cosmetic thing like that, and I just probably won't ever do it. But in OPV, just go off. One last thing, OPVs do have maximum size limits. And of course, I believe size class 24 was the biggest size class you should ever have for OPV. However, you should generally try to have them a little smaller than that as well. That's like the upper limits. Of course, smaller size class will be better for performance and things like that. So, but I believe 24 was your maximum size limits you could do for an OPV in the game rules, at least the vanilla game rules. I don't know if it fluctuates in Reforge Eden or not, but I would definitely try to target well below that, though, unless you happen to have, unless some really insanely cool dreadnought or something that has to be that kind of size class. But other than that, I mean, yeah, within reason. Like this is, I think, size class 3 on this one. The next one might be about size class 6, and the biggest one I plan on doing might be up in around 12 to 14. But that's about as big as I would like to do for a OPV. Other than that, I think that's all I've got to say right now on OPVs. And I hope I didn't miss anything, but I probably did. And please let me know if I got anything wrong in comments or I missed something. Just please write it up there. I will look at all those comments, and when I do like update videos in the future, I'll try to any incorrect information or missing information, I'll try to relay as well. Other than that, y'all have yourself a great day, and I'll talk to you later.